Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the show where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udoaka Mimo. Now, there is no love lost between the opposition coalition, CORD, and the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, the IEBC. CORD says it will stage nationwide demonstrations every Monday until the current commissioners of the IEBC are replaced. But it has also written to President Uhuru Kenyatta requesting dialogue. After the first CORD attempt to physically remove IEBC commissioners from their offices, members of parliament from the governing coalition, Jubilee, got a court order barring CORD from the IEBC offices. But it hasn't stopped the mass action. So Citizen TV has been focused on this issue as we try to find solutions to the deadlock. Our guests are the Bungoma Senator, CORD Principal, and a presidential candidate, Moses Wetangula. And speaking for Jubilee, we have the Kiambu Senator, Kimani Wamatangi. And as always, we have the regular panel of Mutegi Njau and David Makali. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Udwak.
Mr. Wetangula, I'll start with you.
Yes.
Because we know that you want the IEBC commissioners to leave. Remind us why. Take us through why they need to go, why you think they need to go.
You know, you started very well by saying there's no love lost between CORD and the commissioners. As a matter of fact, there shouldn't be any love between anybody and the commissioners. There should be trust. And the relationship of trust is what determines fairness and acceptability of any outcome of an electoral process. It is not just CORD that is saying that IEBC has a credibility gap. Many Kenyans, many organizations in the country are saying the same thing. In fact, even our Jubilee colleagues have said the same thing, but with different intonations and different language. What we are saying is, we are fully aware the manner in which commissioners come to office. We are fully aware the manner in which commissioners can leave office. That is not one way, there are several other ways. What is disturbing us as CORD is the inability of IEBC to satisfy Kenyans that what they are doing is right. Because justice is not about what the judge does, it's what people think the judge is doing, and the perception runs wider and deeper than the fact. IEBC went to elections in 2013 as the umpire. They made a lot of mistakes which Kenyans know, including the alleged collapse of the IT equipment. To date, they have never explained to Kenyans what caused the collapse and the effect on the election. IEBC turned up and startled Kenyans in court by saying they had more than 3 registers of voters. To date, they have never explained why they had 3 registers. IEBC ought to have carried out a thorough audit of what happened and satisfied Kenyans. They have never done that. What we are hearing today is they are ready for the next elections. What have they done to purge themselves of the stigma of the mistakes of last time? Nothing. What have they done to instill confidence? Because it's not enough to wield power and threaten people that if you don't do this, I'll do this. That is not the way to go. What is important is to court everybody's confidence and tell people, fine, I made a mistake. I have mitigated this mistake. It's unlikely to be repeated. And we can go to the next elections with the following safeguards for everybody who wants to come in and be a party. As CORD and I as a candidate, you don't go to elections demanding to win by any means necessary or by all means. You are a contestant. There are always 2 sides to it. But where people find that the process is free, fair, democratic, open and just, they'll accept the outcome. But where there's some opaque behavior, a behavior and a pattern of conduct from the IEBC, right from the issue of registering voters, the issue of maintaining registers, even the sheer demeanor of the commissioners, leaves a lot of questions, and if those questions are not answered, then any participant in an election or in any context has a duty, has a right, and a legitimate right to ask whether they'll get fair play, they'll get fair hearing, they'll get fair conduct or not. That is what we are saying.
Why are you saying they have done nothing when you know, for instance, that they did a strategic plan, which they launched, and they invited all political parties, including yours. The new IEBC, we have a new CEO. They have done a registration this last time.
Let me tell you about that strategic plan. IEBC, and to show their bad faith, IEBC invited CORD to a meeting. At the last minute, they were launching the strategic plan the next day. We met at Fairview Hotel, all the three of us plus all our teams. And we told them, look, you have sprung this document on us today. It's a very critical document. We want to be part of it. What we urge you is postpone the launch of the strategic plan to give us an opportunity to scan through and have an input. And I cautioned my brothers Raila and Kalonzo that what IEB seems to be looking for is to assemble statistics that they consulted as many people as possible to go and launch. The vice chair of the commission assured us that they have listened to us. They are going to see if they can change and give us time to look at the document. The next day, we saw her on TV. This was work in progress. We have consulted everybody. We even met the opposition. We have talked to them, and we are launching. That is definitely not good faith.
You've established the bad faith that exists between CORD and the IEBC, but you haven't quite explained to us why you choose to ignore the constitutional provisions for the removal of the current commission.
As a matter of fact, we haven't. The Constitution provides for the removal of commissioners in independent commissions, which entirely has to have a petition sent to Parliament. Remember, there is a young man called Wafula Buke who took a petition to Parliament questioning the integrity and ability of IEBC to discharge their functions. Parliament, with their so-called tyranny of number, simply heckled off the petition. In fact, they made it so difficult for this petition to be prosecuted that it just collapsed. Number two, we went with Okoa Kenya and we said we want to reform IEBC. We collected signatures, 1.6 million signatures. We put them together. We pre-verified them. We sent them to IEBC. And one of the key pillars of the draft bill for Okoa Kenya was the reform of IEBC, which was going to be good for the country because it was not targeted at supporting CORD. What did we hear? As the process was going on, one Adan Duale and Sakaja announced that the signatures we had sent to IEBC were fake and were going to be rejected. And within a week, it came to pass. Is this an independent IEBC? And IEBC has never distanced themselves from those outbursts of Duale and Sakaja. We have done our bit, but more importantly, Udwak and your team, under the Constitution, demonstrations, picketing, presenting petitions, and sitting in to demand a change is provided for. If I hold a public office, and I've done this before, in fact, I walk with my head high because when there were outrageous allegations against me in the so-called Tokyo land purchase, and the storm was building and everybody was calling me names and my integrity was in question, I left office and went and stayed out until investigations were done and I was recalled back to office. If those IEBC brothers and sisters, they are fellow Kenyans and we treat them fairly, that's why we have been speaking and telling them, please save Kenyans and walk out of office so that other Kenyans can come and take your position. We are not putting them on the pillory or on the guillotine. We are simply expressing ourselves. And every time we have gone to IEBC for a sit-in, for a picket, and for presentation of whatever we have, it is the police that have rioted on us. It is not us who have been rioting. It is the police that have been turning brute force onto us, tossing tear gas canisters at us, injuring people. You can imagine you are sitting on the tarmac legitimately, as the Constitution provides, and you see a policeman there aiming at you, and 2 tear gas canisters exploded right in the middle of where Raila, Kalonzo and I were sitting. Of course, it's unnecessary, it's unhelpful, and it's condemnable. But that doesn't matter. We must make sacrifices to make our country good. The prerequisite to a free and fair election is an acceptable IEBC. The prerequisite to a post-election peaceful Kenya is a process acceptable to everybody. And I want to urge my friends in Jubilee, because you are all saying you don't trust IEBC. Come up and say how you want us to do it. We have asked the president that, you know, the constitution, politics, all over the world, whatever the constitution itself says or the law, there are always negotiated processes. People must sit down and talk and agree. Okay. If we can't sit down and talk and agree, and now because Jubilee is in power, the status quo suits them, however horrible the referee is, if it's going to award them a penalty in the dying minutes and they win the game, is a good referee, then that is not the country we want to have.
That's a challenge to you in Jubilee, Mr. Wamatangi. Do you trust the IEBC?
Well, Udwak, let me first begin by saying that when the IEBC is established under the Constitution, I think that's from Article 88, alongside other constitutional independent commissions in Kenya. And let's remember briefly the history of why did we in our constitution making agitate that we need to have independent, and that's the key word, independent commissions. It is because in the earlier constitution that we had excessive, terrible interference of processes from politicians and from other interested bodies, and that's why we sought to give independent commissions their power. And that is how the IEBC is established. And you have also said it very well, that there is also established a known acceptable mechanism by all the more than 5 million Kenyans who voted during the promulgation of the Constitution and said that this is what we think is an acceptable way of dealing with a scenario whereby we find we want to get either the IEBC or any other commissioners out of office. And what our issue is, and let me clear the air first, that Jubilee is not adamant at all that IEBC must remain in office. We are aware and we know, we accept that upon receipt of valid, agreeable grounds, by way as provided in law, if they are submitted, there is acceptance, the process is followed, that says that yes, these commissioners need to go home, we are quite okay with that they need to go. But also, remember, and this is our main issue here, the independent commissions we have is not only IEBC, and we've been asking ourselves this question, and on behalf of Kenyans, if the precedent that is sought to be set now by court, that in spite of the law, and knowing that this is the process to follow, we can marshal our supporters, we can say we want to go and march, break the gates of IEBC, get in there and whisk the commissioners out, and that achieves what we think is our end. Now tell us, what is going to happen when somebody, somewhere, or a group of people think that they are not happy with the decision made by the National Land Commission? Are we saying that we want to set that as a precedent whereby a community that says somewhere that we think this land is ours can march to the offices of the National Land Commission and eject those commissioners? Now, are we saying, for example, and knowing, for example, the sensitivity right now, like in the judiciary, if today a judgment is passed that I or Jubilee is not happy about, are we saying that we need to marshal our supporters to go to the offices of JSC and say that the decisions being made by the judges that we have appointed to the system are not right for us, so eject them, we want to eject these people? Now what we are saying is that the law needs to be followed. And also important to work is this. You've seen, and I'm glad I saw it yesterday on Citizen TV during news, you've seen the sentiment as raised by the common person himself on the street as to how does the demonstrations that CORD has been carrying out every Monday affect them. And you saw business people, even showing broken glasses on their businesses, saying that these people came here, they threw stones, broke glasses here, and we could not do our business. In that area where CORD goes every Monday for the last two weeks to meet, which institutions are there? For example, remember around there we have several businesses, we've got a university around there,
okay.
where
You've made the point,
yeah.
But let's come back to the original question. Do you trust the IEBC?
No.
Do you have faith in the IEBC?
As we Jubilee right now, unless proved otherwise, IEBC has conducted its business as it should conduct, and that's what we have said. And you know, without delving into any personal issues, I would expect, indeed, as I sit here, that somebody like my good colleague, Senator Wetangula, the senator for Bungoma, would be the first to say that amidst or amongst other functions that the IEBC carries out, not only to conduct elections, remember, and the senator is fully aware of this. When Senator faced one of the most difficult times of his life, when the judicial process has reached its end and adjudged him that he should be struck off the voters register, and it was upon the IEBC to make either an independent decision and say that we will strike him off the register or not. But IEBC, in spite of even a ruling by the Supreme Court, stood up and said we do not find enough evidence or ground to strike Senator Wetangula off the register. Now, would you say that that is a biased commission? Now, what we are saying is this, that and I would want to derive this from what was said yesterday by the court principals. They said they have written to the president that indeed now they want a dialogue. You may want to ask yourself...
They've been asking for dialogue.
We have always wanted dialogue.
Yesterday they asked for dialogue on the IEBC issue.
No, they've been asking for dialogue for almost 2 years.
Yes, they asked for dialogue earlier. When they asked for dialogue earlier, the IEBC question was not on it. And even
the referendum push.
And even Odwak, even in this dialogue that they have asked for, and granted it is good to talk, we agree. If indeed there is, it is open, they're able to say this is the agenda of what you want to talk about, these are the issues, we are open to that discussion. Jubilee will definitely talk with them, but the talk must be talk that is based on positive factors. And what we've been saying, and I think this one I will say, you know, for the sake of this country and people like me, who think like me, that as long as we continue to push a campaign that is based on negative factors, and
what are you calling negative and positive factors?
Let me explain myself. You see, every time when CORD has sought to get on the public platform and convince the people of Kenya that there are good alternatives to the government and to the policies of Jubilee, they have done so by whipping the emotions of this country. And I'm specific, especially on the route that they have chosen to take on the question of IEBC, because our history is still very vivid. In 2007, we remember very well that it was the cause that started for mass action that eventually were propelled. They continued, and at the end of the day, we ended up with deaths, losses of lives, massacres,
Mr. Matangi, let me come in because the interpretation of history is rather selective. If I remember correctly, about 2 years ago, CORD called for dialogue, and Jubilee, the president actually, you know, agreed to it, and then, you know, influential people within your coalition prevailed upon him, and then, you know, he reneged upon that decision, and then you had the mass action, and so now you have mass action again and calls for dialogue, but you also seem to be framing the context within which this dialogue will take place. And so do you not see how you can push an interested party to the wall where they feel that they have no option but mass action?
Well, Odwak, if you go to even a basic meeting, even the most common of meetings, what's the first thing that you do? You say, let's adapt the agenda, because the agenda must be known of what you're coming to discuss about. I mean, you cannot just come and...
And so you're rejecting the court agenda for dialogue, is what I'm hearing.
In that agenda for dialogue, what are the issues? Which issues? Is it only the IEBC? We are open to talk about IEBC. If court wants us to follow the right procedures in getting IEBC, let somebody do a petition based on issues in context, bring it through the channels, let it be discussed. And I want to say quickly on this issue, Woodwork. You see, what Senator Wetangula has referred to about the petition that was brought to Parliament by Wafula Buke as a case in point that people would refer to, that process does not work, is not right and is not true. Because when Wafula Buke brought a petition to Parliament, it was specific about the elections of 2013. His petition was based on the conduct of the elections of that and the outcome of 2013. So when that came to Parliament, it came to Parliament when the Supreme Court had already made a decision. And you see, petitions through Parliament cannot be used to either revise or reverse decisions of the Supreme Court. And so it was not going to be a petition that was going to go anywhere. But right now, and I want to also point out this to my colleague, Senator Wetangula, and he is a lawyer. He is very well versed, more than I am, in matters of law. If indeed court has those real issues against IEBC, and as he has said specifically about the signatures that they sent to IEBC, the Constitution in Article 254 provides a very clear way out. It says that if either Parliament, that is the Senate, it specifies if the Senate, if the National Assembly, or even the President himself has got a specific issue, and the word is specific issue, that the IEBC must do a report and clarify on, Parliament is empowered to ask the IEBC on that specific issue, do a report and bring us that report. Even the senator tomorrow can come to Parliament and say that we want the IEBC to do a report on the specific issue of the signatures that we give to them. They bring it to the Senate, we debate it. Upon that decision, we can find that they're at fault, the IEBC, and we can start the process of having them out of office if they have conducted themselves. And lastly, Woodwork, in the provisions of how you get a commissioner out, it's clear it is on the basis of either misconduct or abuse of law by a commissioner, or the other, and also incompetence. Now, if in that process, then court is able to prove when they have asked IEBC to do a specific report on the issue of those signatures, they say they have misconducted themselves, we will start that as a basis of getting them out. And we will instill confidence in the people of Kenya. Tomorrow people can believe the law. They will say that yes, this constitution works in winter and in summer. It works when things are good and when things are bad, when court is not in power and when Jubilee is in power. That is the constitution we want. But we cannot say, Woodwork, that there are times when we find it is so convenient and so emotionally correct for us that time. Because, and I want to finalize this way, and I want to refer specifically to, remember when there was a by-election in Bomet County, in a place called, in a ward called Nyangores. And at that particular time, the candidate who was running on a Kanu ticket, together backed by CORD, won the election. And I want to refer to the specific comments that were made at that particular time by CORD themselves. They said, indeed, now we see, it is evident that we have a commission that can be impartial when it comes, because they declared the man they win against all odds. And it was said that time that this is a contest between the governor and the deputy president. Now when the results came out that the guy had won, they said, oh yes, it works. Now why doesn't it work? And ask yourself, as I finish, and I think that's my last on this issue. Before we went to the elections in Malindi, CORD profiled a candidate. Before we went to the elections, in Kericho, although they did not bring a candidate, they participated in the process by proxy. But they had a specific candidate. Now, if at that time they indeed had no trust absolutely in the IEBC, unless this is something that they have just suddenly found out after the signatures, they would not have absolutely brought a candidate to a referee they don't trust. They would have said, we don't trust this referee, so we can't bring a candidate to Malindi. They brought a candidate, their candidate won. You see, and so that's what we're saying. You know, on the basis of saying that the referee becomes biased when there is a likelihood that we can lose the game, that is when the referees are judged to be biased. When we say that we are going to teach Kenyans the bad manners, that indeed there are times when we can conveniently subvert the law, and says that this time we felt so emotional that indeed this was so urgent that unless we abuse the law and divert, then we could not deal with this. That's what we are saying is not right. Let's do things correctly. If IEBC has got to go home, let them go home through the same gate they came in through, and that is the law of this country.
Okay.
You know, Woodwork.
Very quickly, because I have to take a break.
Oh, you want to take a break? You know, the problem I see from my brother Matang is coming to a debate unprepared, and therefore you shoot in every direction hoping you'll hit a target. We're talking about IEBC and the ability and capacity to instill confidence in the electoral process of this country for everybody to be satisfied. That IEBC made a decision in favor of Weta in my matter is neither here nor there. The country is bigger than me. We're talking about a big event called the general election, not a by-election in Nyangores or a small thing here and there. What is the overall picture? What are we looking at? Until and unless we have a bipartisan approach. And I have told my Jubilee colleagues, even Mzee Moi, who was stronger than any one of them will ever be, when things on elections came to the fore in 1997, Mzee Moi walked to Parliament and sat with us and said, gentlemen, ladies, this country cannot go the way we are going. He didn't dig in and say, follow the constitution, follow the law, and at every direction you are telling people to follow the constitution, you have tear gas and a roadblock. You have water cannons and a roadblock. And you have all manner of people ready to abuse, insult, and do all manner of things to belittle others. Every leader in this country deserves some treatment with dignity and to be listened to and to be able to communicate. That's why we have been asking Jubilee, both in writing and through public media. This country belongs to all of us. Can we sit down and talk? It's not a question of, I have numbers, bring a petition, I'll deal with it. That is not how to solve the problems of this country. And that is not how to deal with matters of elections. After your break, I'll tell you many more issues that I think warrants.
No, we have to take a break now.
On the question
no,
of...
just a minute. I have to take a break. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV. Do you trust the IEBC? Should the commissioners stay or should they go? Text us. Our SMS number is 22422, or you can tweet us using the hashtag Cheche.